Today, we are pulling back the curtain on an embarrassing habit that Shai and I used to hold near and dear.
So if you want to hear some embarrassing stories, but also I think you'll be rooting for us, the comeback kids, this emotional habit that we intentionally changed, stay tuned.
One of our proudest business accomplishments is what we've been able to do with Squeeze In franchising.
The Squeeze In is a breakfast lunch restaurant featuring the best omelets on the planet, and it's been around for almost 50 years. And now you can have a Squeeze In your community.
We've seen how this business transformed our families, and now we are so excited to offer this to families around the country to see how this little restaurant might change their family and their community.
If you're wondering how to set up your adult children for legacy and success through a small business, then the Squeeze In is an option we urge you to consider. Come find out more about Squeeze In franchising at squeezein.com.
You're enjoying this episode on Angel Phoenix Productions Podcast Network. To explore a complete lineup of quality programs and media production services, head on over to angelphoenix.com or like our Facebook page at facebook.com/Angel Phoenix Productions.
We talked about in our longer form episode this week that habits are so much more than just behavioral. Habits really dive into how we think and our thinking patterns, and also into our emotional behaviors too.
So we have an emotional behavior that we identified in ourselves and we decided we wanted to get rid of. And it's taken time, and we still continue to form the myelin sheath around that neurosynapses highway in our brains. But it was a deeply formed habit of judging others and then vocalizing that judgment in the form of talking smack.
And that was talking smack behind closed doors with just one another about those judgments, talking smack with other people about people's judgments that we had, and sometimes talking smack loud enough that the person we were smack talking about could hear.
Which is exactly what we want to bring forward today, and exactly the situation that put this bad habit in front of our faces in a way that made us want to change it. So here's the scenario. Many of you, our listeners, are from our Maxwell Leadership family, and you know that twice a year we get to gather in Orlando and have an amazing International Maxwell Conference, which is so fun and we love to do it. So we were on one of those flights, the second flight from Phoenix to Orlando, where we land. And we land in Orlando. Now you get up early. It's a long day of flying. You've been there. You're towards the back of the plane. The plane finally lands. It's a long taxi. And we get finally to the gate when you can stand up and you hear that sound of all the seatbelts.
They start unbuckling left and right, and people start shuffling, and you hear the opening of the upper airways, and they're grabbing their suitcases down, and suddenly a woman from the back of the plane charges herself forward in front of everybody else to stand in the middle. Now, this is very much against social airplane etiquette, right? It's much like merging on the freeway. You wait for your turn and we zipper in one after another. That's how the social structure of airplanes work. But in this case, the woman came from significantly further back than we were and rushed up to be right in front of our seats. Now, what happened next, we can't say we're necessarily proud of.
We were outraged and we made it known. Now, it started with the looks, right? She comes surging up. Where the crowd is now standing up and at our seat. So she ends up having to stop basically at our seat. So she surges up. She's got a daughter. And we look at each other. And then we look at her and we're doing the big eyes and we're looking at other passengers around us. Like the audacity of this woman to surge from the back to take my spot in this air. Like these are the indignant feelings rising enough that we start to vocalize kind of in a whisper to each other. Like, can't believe that.
Like, this is just crazy. Like she just charged up here in front of everyone. And at first we're whispering, but then the passenger that's next to us starts nodding along with what we're saying. So we start talking louder. And the people we were making eye contact with before with the big eyes, they start nodding along too. So we start talking louder. And before we know it, Shyla and I are loudly pronouncing to the plane at large that it is so rude to just surge in front when everyone has their turn to get off this plane. They did not talk about any delays happening from where I just can't believe that people would do that with the woman standing right about 2 feet away from us.
She physically starts shrinking and turning more and more from us with her kind of, I would say, teenage, maybe young 20s daughter. And they're kind of, whispering, and she starts to kind of back off a little bit, but there's now people behind her too. So she's trying to sort of push back and just shuffling. So it's tense. But she gets off and we get off, and the indignation begins to kind of settle out of us, and we see her down at the, baggage, and we're still having the tremors of kind of like everybody gets off at the same time. Boy, did you really make it here earlier? Right. And we start to feel that way. And then we get our bags and we get in the Uber and we realize, OMG, I feel disgusting. I feel disgusting that I let another human being feel that way because of my judgments about their behavior, when in the end, it didn't endanger me. It didn't hurt me. It didn't anything. And as I said that, Kay said, OMG, I'm so glad you said that, because me too.
Our espoused values are those of loving people, of being community oriented and friendly individuals, of being the type of people who bring others into our warm energy and make them feel safe. And we saw such dissonance between our behavior and what we say we are and who we proclaim to be, that we decided we had to make a change. Not just from what we say, but how we felt on the inside. We couldn't do this to other people anymore. And that meant not just the crap talking like on the plane, but the crap talking behind the closed doors, the crap talking to each other, the bonding with other people over the table of crap talking. I wanted to say the S word so bad, but I'm not going to say it. And so this is something that we decided to put into the past. And so the next couple of plane rides were a little uncomfortable, because turns out this kind of happens a lot on planes, and we just needed to get over it. So the next couple of plane rides, we gave each other the looks, but we didn't say anything. And then 2 plane rides later, we found ourselves heads down, laughing with each other and talking. And we actually had somebody tap us and be like, hey ladies, it's time for you to get up and leave the plane. We hadn't even noticed that it was our turn, let alone whether people searched from the back to the front, because the habit at this point had been broken, and we were finally freed from the emotional shackles that were placed on us by the habit of indignation that came with getting the fair thing to happen on that plane.
Well, we'll talk a little bit more about how we change that in the next mini-sode. We hope you enjoyed this confession session with your sisters.
This podcast was a production of Angel Phoenix Productions. Explore more episodes of this show or other great shows on the Angel Phoenix Podcast Network by visiting angelphoenix.com. The views expressed in this show do not necessarily represent those of Angel Phoenix Productions or its advertisers, and may contain language that's unsuitable for younger listeners.